Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chelsea Ale, and I am with Stacey Brooks today. I am the president of the Professional Diving Coaches Association, and Stacey is the founder of And Diving. So we are very happy to have her talking with us today about what's going on with the sport of diving, what she's been doing to try and help it, and then what we can do to help the sport as well. So, Stacey, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Chelsea, for having this recording for everybody. Really want to get everyone involved. I started in the diving community when probably you were coaching at a very young age with my daughter Jocelyn and Abigail. They're my favorite divers, of course, and they were at the Montgomery Dive Club when they were little, and then transitioned over to Dominion Dive Club, and have been there ever since. Jocelyn's now diving at the University of Pittsburgh, and of course, her freshman year, we get the full-on panic of the NCAA changes and how that impacts the divers. And I became involved in this while watching some of her teammates struggle to maintain their roster spots, and that watching those divers dive their entire life and grow up in the sport and then all of a sudden have their dreams taken away from them as freshmen is pretty tough. And these kids also went through a lot during COVID as well. They lost their training right as they were trying to prepare for their recruiting, and a lot of them fought back whether or not they should quit back then, and they stuck with it. And then to have this challenge come in front of them right away in their college career was pretty tough. So um, don't make mamas mad. So this dive mama jumped in and said, "Hey, I work in Washington D.C. There's got to be something that we can do to help and try to rally around these kids that lost their spots." So that's my why. Um, and so happy to help.
It's definitely a good why. I mean, it's crazy that it's been so long since I coached your kids. It's been a long time. It's kind of interesting that they're all in, college and getting older now.
Yep.
But it's definitely, I mean, the times are changing a lot with House versus NCAA. I mean, I know a lot of people think about it as like basketball and football, and it's really popular for those sports, but it's definitely hurting sports like swimming and diving, the Olympic sports and non-revenue sports. And with UVA cutting their diving program, that was just one of the things that's happened recently. That was definitely a huge shift and sadness, especially because they've always had really good divers. And so I know
Yep.
we all appreciate the fact that you're fighting for this and that you're helping, and it's an amazing thing that you're doing. We just want to, help more to make sure that our sport stays alive. So can you tell me a little bit about like what the and diving is and the story behind that or the thought behind that?
So one of the biggest challenges, as you know, is the swimming and diving construct under NCAA has put the diving community kind of at a disadvantage with all of the rest of the sports because they have to stand in a larger community with swim coaches and dive coaches and try to get attention. And as you know, we're a very small community. And what I've learned over the last several months from USA Diving and some of our NCAA coaches is that for the most part, the college swims and swim, you'll have to help me with the name correctly, but the CSSA, I believe is the right acronym, the College Swim Coaches Association, is the only one that actually gets to bring rule changes to the overall NCAA. They only listen to one community for per sport. Well, swimming and diving is two sports, but we are represented by one nonprofit organization that speaks on our behalf, and that's unfortunate. So we're trying to bring attention to that disconnect, that this is two sports that are conveniently, I call it an arranged marriage, conveniently put together because we share a swimming pool. And so I wanted to make sure people were focused on the and diving part of the swimming and diving, and that's how we came up with the name.
I like it. I mean, a lot of people don't think about that if they don't really understand our sports. Like, we are the only sport that's combined like high school and college that have our own national governing bodies that have our own rules, policies, regulations. But so like we have USA Swimming and USA Diving. They're two separate entities,
Right.
but in high school and in college, it's swimming and diving.
Yep.
And then what a lot of times people don't realize too is like even though a diving coach is considered a head diving coach, there's still in almost every single program underneath the swimming coach. So they have the title of a head coach, but they don't have the authority or the autonomy of an actual head coach, where the swim coach is the one who's in charge of it. And even what you said about the name of the organization, I mean, the College Swimming Association, diving's not in there. And so they're talking about adding the D to add diving to it, but it just sort of shows you that diving doesn't quite have the same voice that swimming does. And so I think it's great that you're pointing out that we are and diving, because diving's just as important as swimming. I mean, we might be a smaller sport, but we are our own sport and our own special thing as well. So we deserve to have a seat at the table, have the respect, and have people know who we are. So we appreciate that for sure. So recently you went to DC. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did there, the reason for that, and the benefits of that?
Sure. So we really felt that it was important to get some of our Olympians and USA diving leadership and some of our higher profile coaches up to Washington, D.C. to get the attention of members of Congress to help them understand that diving doesn't necessarily have its own representation. All of the Olympic sports are struggling through similar challenges with this NCAA settlement, but they all have a voice, and so we wanted to make sure that our congressional leaders knew that we needed someone to speak up for us. As you noted, we our dive coaches are very often subordinate to their swim head coaches. That means that those swim coaches are their boss. The swim coaches are making the decisions about scholarships, roster spots. There's always a mother may I relationship when they pick up a new diver, when they want to grow the team, when they want to travel to a meet. It's all about those budgets, and that's headed by organized by the swim coaches in most cases. So it really creates a situation where the coaches don't feel comfortable speaking up for themselves, and even the athletes I've seen are not feeling comfortable stepping up, and that's a situation where we need our leaders to come in and fill that gap and to talk about the challenges and understand the challenges. So we took Lima Shad with USA Diving, Drew Johansson, who is actually a head coach at his university, but also the USA Diving Olympic coach for many rounds. And so he spoke on behalf of himself and USA Diving as opposed to his university, just to make sure that he was able to speak independently. Andrew Capabianca joined us, as well as Scott Doney, both Olympic silver medalists, and we really had a great time talking with members of Congress. They were appreciative of the awareness that we were providing to them, and we also brought a couple of athletes with us that were willing to speak up and tell a little bit about the situation and what they're experiencing and the stress that it brought on at the end of the competitive season, to know that they might get cut at the end of the season. It's as freshman divers, you're new to the scene, first round of your experience going through zones and that sort of thing, and then to find out if you don't make nationals you might get cut. That's pretty stressful on a 19-year-old kid. So they're adults, but that's a young point in their career. So, and all of these junior coaches have done a really good job of preparing these athletes throughout their careers to be ready for these moments and get their peak through that college season, and to have this strain is difficult. So we shared a lot of that information with members of Congress from Texas, Indiana, Virginia, and Colorado as well, because of the Olympic Training Center being there, in California because of the LA 2028 Olympics. And our hope is that the coaches out in your community can also augment what we've done by communicating with their local members of Congress and to amplify what we've been saying. So that's really important to keep the momentum going. Just because we raise awareness doesn't mean that they're going to continue to think about us throughout. There's a lot of distraction in DC, a lot of things going on, and sports is not the most important thing. We have to admit that it's not the most important problem to solve right now. And so you just have to poke your head up and give them solutions that they can implement pretty quickly without causing a lot of controversy. And so that's what we were trying to accomplish there.
You definitely made good points. Like for us, diving is so important. It's such a huge thing that we want to fight for. But for people in DC, they might not really, care about it as much or might not be as forefront or as important to them. And people, wonder like, what is the point of talking to legislators and people in DC? Because, some of our issues relate to NCAA or the other different divisions and conferences and stuff within collegiate athletics. So what is the benefit of making sure that these legislators and people in DC really listen to us and hear about the things that we're saying?
So one really important note that everyone has to understand is that Congress does not have direct impact on the NCAA. It's an independent organization, just like if you ran your own business. Congress couldn't walk in and tell you, "Hey, you have to put pink shirts on your shelf on the right side." They can't do that. They can't tell the PDCA what to do with their bylaws. They can't tell the ACC what to do with their bylaws. But these people have a lot of influence. They can pick up the phone and they can call the NCAA president. They can pick up the phone and call the head of the ACC. And so there's a lot of influence there. And every NCAA institution receives tax benefits from the United States taxpayers. So they are nonprofit organizations, essentially. They don't pay the same taxes that a regular business of that size would pay. So there is a taxpayer investment into their infrastructure. In addition, Olympic sports is overseen by Congress. They do determine what investments we make. They do allow us to host the Olympics. They do oversee USA, Team USA, and those sorts of things. Center for Safe Sport was created by Congress. There's a lot of interest and influence in the Olympic sports. And so it's really important for them to understand what's going on. And if they feel the need to get involved, they can, mostly through tax law. They can also get involved with some regulatory activity. And typically it's nice to keep them out of those things. But when people are getting hurt, it's important to say, hey, now we need your help. And so that's what we did. I'll give you some examples of things that we asked them to do. One is that there has been over time frames an Olympic Caucus, which actually brings members of Congress together to meet. And that Olympic Caucus has kind of been ebbing and flowing. And we said, hey, we're about to host the Olympics. Let's get this Olympic Caucus going and let's start talking about the importance of Olympic sports and give a voice to these issues at a national level. And so that was one thing we encouraged all the people we met with to join that Olympic Caucus. The second thing we asked them to do was to write letters to the NCAA and to also, in some cases, contact universities that are in their districts and their states. For example, UVA, we thought it was really important that the president understood how all of this was playing out and the impact to the divers in that community. So that was an activity we encouraged them to do. In Indiana, the NCAA is based in Indiana, so those members of Congress can actually make a phone call and talk to them for us, and that's good to have that influence of, hey, we're watching you, be careful. And then finally, there's actually some legislation that's being proposed to provide resources for youth sports. And so we wanted to encourage Congress to support that legislation and allow entities who are trying to develop facilities for youth sports to be able to apply for grants. And so we'll see where that legislation goes. And that's a good idea for diving platform facilities, especially. Those are very expensive and they're hard to come by. So if somebody wants to build a new pool, maybe they'll be able to get a little extra money to help them, encourage them to include a platform facility and 3-meter diving facilities in that pool.
Oh, it's amazing. And I love the fact that you have like the three different things that you ask them to do and ask them to work on because a lot of people, it's like goal oriented or task oriented. So giving them
Right.
actual things to work towards is incredibly important. And I'm glad that they're also different because depending on the person, they might have more pull with one thing or another.
Exactly. So that's how we're asking Congress to get involved. But there may be other ideas in your community, maybe other observations people make about the challenges. So we encourage people to, when they're reaching out to their members of Congress and even their state and local delegations, if there's something specific going on in their state, that they customize it for what they're seeing in their community, because each member of Congress is focused on their local constituents.
Absolutely. And every community is a little bit different in the way that they handle things. And so it's good to also get everyone involved. Like it's not just going to DC, but reaching out to each state individually and reaching out to, whether it's local, state, or regional, like depending on who's in charge, it's important. Um,
Right.
sorry, excuse me. So, House versus NCAA has been a huge thing that kind of started this whole conversation. I think that, they started roster cuts before it was even determined. Now there's, other things that are changing with it. Does it matter to still have these conversations because it's been approved, or what do we see still changing? How can we affect it, even though the settlement's actually gone through now?
Absolutely. There are plenty of opportunities to continue to refine the rules, and this is just the first year of implementation. I think the roster limits um, uh, seemed inevitable at the beginning, but the implementation was brutal and harsh on a lot of kids. After the first few years, it might end up being that that's the steady state, and we can all live with it. But I was appreciative that the judge started paying attention to the kids in the pipeline, the students in the pipeline at this time. However, it happened so late in the game that a lot of the coaches reacted too soon. And, they saw that looming deadline of July 1st and said, well, I have to allow these kids the opportunity to go somewhere else and let them know the writing's on the wall for them. And, I appreciate that and I respect that to some extent. I think certain colleges and universities were overly harsh with it, and didn't seem to think about the future of the sport of diving. It sent a signal that they weren't concerned about diving at all. But for the most part, I think a lot of the coaches really wanted to just make sure their athletes had an opportunity to get back out there and be a part of the sport in another environment. Unfortunately, because of the uncertainty, a lot of those athletes couldn't find homes simply because another team wasn't willing to take the risk to pick up any new athletes. And that was an unintended consequence of the incomplete settlement, right? We didn't know yet where we were going, but we knew something was coming, and so coaches were trying to couch their reaction to it. I do appreciate that she was allowing grandfather athletes and the fact that they could take that status with them. Hopefully, that gives coaches some motivation to jump in and say, yes, I want this athlete to be able to continue in the sport, even if I don't have room for them. So, for the coaches in your membership population who ended up having to cut athletes, please speak up for your athletes and say, hey, we can't put them here. It's too late. They've already gone in the portal, but we want to label them as athletes that were cut because of roster limits. That way they can take that status with them even if they go to another university or they've already transferred. For the ones that are still at the universities that cut them, I hope that the athletes have confidence in themselves to speak up and say, hey, I want to come back. And you need to keep me. That's what this judge said. And members of Congress can actually get involved in that. They can actually help. Those are when I worked on Capitol Hill, we call those constituent inquiries. So if an athlete is feeling a little like they need somebody behind them to help encourage the school to do that, they should write their member of Congress and they should say, hey, I was cut. This settlement says that I should be able to stay on the team, yet my coach is not willing to take me back. And that member of Congress can actually call up the university and say, hey, what gives? You guys cut this athlete. You need to take care of them. It's only 3 more years or it's only 2 more years. Just deal with it. And hopefully they can embrace them and pull them back into the team. But that is a difficult situation for a young adult to be in, to not know for sure that they have the opportunities and they're going to be treated with respect through the rest of that experience. So that's where having leaders behind us helps, and helps having that support. Um, it's I was in high school myself and had to call a member of Congress when I was kept from doing something that I had a right to do, and that's actually what got me into working with Capitol Hill as a young adult. So it was helpful, and the school realized that their error and completely supported me after that point. So there is a way to turn this around, but having those advocates behind us holds the NCAA accountable and holds the individual institutions accountable for the people involved, and focusing on those human beings versus winning versus money is what we should all be about.
It is tough because like the schools were trying to do, I think, for some of the, like the right thing and yeah, help the athletes be able to transfer and everything. But then it was too soon. And so all these roster cuts happen and some of them don't have homes now. Some of them don't know where they're going. Some of them could stay at their universities because of what the judge decided. But then at the same time, maybe they got cut in a way that didn't feel right or that they feel like some type of way about it
Yeah.
go back to their university and so it's definitely a really like tough, challenging time right now for these athletes and for the coaches and to try and figure out what to do, how to do it, and how to make it the best for everyone. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about the kids. I say kids, they're college, but the
Hmm.
kids and making sure that they're happy and healthy and successful.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not always about winning, even though
Right.
that's what it seems to be, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
And the sport of diving is so amazing with as far as teaching people about themselves emotionally. It's not only an athletic sport, but a mental sport. And all sports have some mental aspect to it. I played volleyball, I played softball, and having confidence in catching a ball that's whizzing at you really fast is hard. It's you want to just like, oh, I'm going to get hit. I'll let it go by me. But you have to stay focused and believe in yourself. All of those sports do, but diving has so many moments where you have to face your fear, and it's to me watching my family members rise up in the sport and learn about themselves was the most important part. And so, letting these young adults continue in the sport is important because they're going to face moments like that in their careers where they're going to have to talk to their boss about something difficult, or they're going to have to talk to a large audience, and maybe that makes them nervous. And this sport is enabling them to have that confidence and say, oh gosh, I didn't like that doing my front 3.5 off of 10 meter either, but I made myself do it and I was okay, and I can do this too. So, I really hope that we can continue to grow the sport just for the valuable life skills that it teaches everybody who's involved in it.
Absolutely. I mean, I say all the time, the reason I have 3 degrees is because of the sport of diving. I mean, technically diving paid for my first degree, but if it wasn't for the lessons that I learned in diving, the resources that I got because of it, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so, yes, learning how to flip and twist your body around is a really cool skill to have, but I think you learn so much more in the sport. And that's to me one of the most important things and one of the reasons we need to save the sport is because it's not just about the actual sport itself. It's about building better humans and making them successful in all aspects of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to encourage everyone. We keep saying save the sport. Well, I can tell you in Northern Virginia, we have the Northern Virginia Swim and Dive League, and it is growing leaps and bounds every single year. Diving is not struggling at the youth level the way people might think it is. What's important to know is that the NCAA facilities are crucial to that. Many youth club programs practice at NCAA facilities. And we saw that in COVID when a lot of those facilities said, oh, we don't want those germy kids coming in here. So you guys are going to have to go practice somewhere else. And it crushed a lot of really amazing youth programs, and those programs are starting to build back up again. So we need to make sure that the ecosystem continues to transition from those really fun summer leagues into the club programs and into high school and then into college. Keep that pipeline from breaking again like we saw in COVID, and that will help us keep the sport. But NCAA is a critical part of that piece, and we need to make sure that piece of the puzzle is sustained.
Absolutely. You brought up a good point with the facilities. I mean, college facilities are some of the best facilities in the country for us for diving. So having access to them is huge. And then also just having the desire to dive in college, I feel like motivates a lot of people to continue with this when
Mhm.
they are younger because they want college scholarships or they want to be able to have the opportunity to dive in college. Where if it didn't exist in the college level, then they might pick a different sport just because they want to have that opportunity to be a collegiate athlete.
Right, right. And just one more thought in all of that is that while we have Olympians that come out of the NCAA system, those Olympians are always pushed by the athletes underneath them. One of my two kids has always been the diver who is willing to try a new dive first out of her whole club. She was always the one that ran to the platform. She was always the one to try, doing a double twister or something crazy. And maybe it didn't go well the first time, and maybe she took her longer to get it to competition level. But when other kids saw her do that dive, they were like, oh, shoot, now I need to learn that dive. And it kept pushing them. And I watched over and over and over again where, she would try something, and the best athletes on the team who were really a little bit more reluctant wouldn't do it until she did it. And it's like, okay, well, she did it, so now I have to. And that's a really important aspect of our sport. And it's probably the same thing with a lot of other sports. The swimmers will swim really fast and the others are chasing them, right? And so that makes everybody better. So we can't just focus on the top tier athletes all the time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the sport is it's like an ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone helps everyone become
Yep,
better and more successful. You can't just focus on
absolutely.
one area. You've got to look at all different levels because they all interact with each other and they all help each other in
Yep.
different ways.
I mean, look at our 2021 Olympians. We had two recent high school graduates go and end up getting Olympic spots that everyone thought should have been going to these college students, but they showed up that day, and
Mhm.
they managed to push everybody else to be better and more consistent. So anyway, I know I promised I would show you some tools that I've developed to help everyone. And if you don't have access, I would say to definitely go email me at andiving@gmail.com. And we have several resources in this toolkit, but one resource I know people don't often have um, the ability to write or they don't know what to say. And so what we've done is we've developed a draft letter that people can customize and get to their members of Congress. Um, and it has all of the talking points that we've talked about here today about encouraging the power conferences to protect diving in their roster spots, and creating rules around that, and also funding diving facilities. So here's that legislation we talked about, the Youth Sports Facilities Act, that is sponsored by Senator Young from Indiana. So it has all of those key points, but please don't be afraid to customize this letter. It's actually better if you can. You can talk about what your role is in the sport, that you're a coach or that you're an athlete, and make sure that it sounds personalized and that it's not just a form letter. But definitely try to include some of these major points. And if you don't agree with one of the points, just delete it and take it out. If you have a different point that you want to make, feel free to put it in. And everyone should know, even if you are under a university system that's anxious about you talking to Congress, as a public citizen of the United States of America, you are allowed to talk to your member of Congress. And if you feel like there's some pressure not to, just let the member of Congress know that you're representing yourself and you're not speaking on behalf of the university that you work for. And that should help them know that you're speaking just personally, and it won't hold your university accountable. And then I will also show you real quickly the resources for everyone. We have some letters that we've written. We have background papers. We have a resource list, sample emails, that sort of thing. So feel free to work in this folder, and I'll send that email out to everybody that emails me back. And then you can get to that Google Drive and use any of those resources you want. And then finally, if you don't know how to get a hold of your member of Congress, I'll put this link in the top of the letter, but there is a website. You just type in Right Rep Congress in Google and find your representative, and you put your zip code in. I'm going to put my dad's zip code in just for fun. And there we go. We have this particular Congressman, Joni Goose from Colorado. And that's how you get a hold of your House member. So every district has a House member, and then you have two senators, Um, every congressman or every state has 2 senators, so you can look up your state and you can click here and they will give you the information, and you can see the contact information, office locations, and it'll have all of the information of how to get a hold of that particular member of Congress. Now, what's really interesting is every member of Congress has offices in the state. So if you live near a particular office, you're Chelsea, are you in the Huntsville area? Where are you?
I'm in Tuscaloosa.
Tuscaloosa. So you could actually go by, contact this office. You could actually stop in and schedule a meeting with their staff there and say, I'm concerned about this. And you just call that phone number and make a phone call and say, hey, when your congressman is in our area, can I have a meeting with them? Or you could meet with the staff. There's nothing wrong with meeting staff. They also often hold open houses. They hold different events. So if you don't want to put something in writing, but you want to come to an event, and then you can just, and they're not always fundraising events. They're typically town hall meetings. You can show up to those town hall meetings and you can have a conversation. Sometimes they have telephone town halls where they'll call you and then you listen to them talk about their priorities and they give you chances to ask questions. It's a great opportunity to say, hey, I'm concerned about this NCAA thing. So anyway, there's lots of ways to do it. It doesn't have to just be a letter. And then every single state has a similar structure of a House of Representatives or a Senate, state Senate. Sometimes they call them chambers, sometimes they call them delegates. Virginia has delegates, but every state has that, and usually you're represented by a senator and a delegate, and it's helpful to get in touch with those. But if you are having trouble finding that information, just send me an email and I'll be happy to walk you through it.
Amazing. Those are great resources. So again, the email is
Yes.
anddiving@gmail.com.
Yes.
Perfect. And then you also will be able to send out mass emails to people giving them updated information if they email you as well, correct?
That is correct. We're working on setting up constant contact, thanks to your organization, to be able to reach people in larger quantities. Right now, I can only send small groups of emails, and they're not always going through. The spam filters are picking up on them. So make sure you add and diving to your accepted email list. That makes it a lot easier for me to get things through. But we'll be standing up a little bit better campaign as we get that email system set up, and hopefully people will be hearing from me soon.
It's amazing all the stuff you've done. I mean, even, just to be a parent, to care this much and to help. I know we all appreciate it and appreciate the support and everything. You also have an Instagram account that's
Yes, that's true.
well, so people can
Yes.
follow that. And you're always posting stuff on there.
I do my best. If people want to tag us in Instagram, that would be great because I have done social media before in my past, but I'm probably not as cool as I used to be. So yes, here I can show you the page at the moment. Share. Let's go back here. Oh, nope, not there. There. Okay. So we have our Andiving account, and right now, oops, I gotta log in. Well, anyway, you get the idea. It has a little underscore in the front of it just because somebody had already used the Andiving account. That's where we are, and feel free to tag us anytime you want. I've tried to follow back everybody who follows us, and we're doing pretty good. We're getting some momentum.
Yeah, I mean, you're always got people talking about it and posting about it, and you have t-shirts as well.
Yes, yes, we do have t-shirts. The order link is getting refreshed. I asked the team that made the shirts to put it back up again, so I'll share the link when we get that back up and running. But the proceeds for the t-shirts do come back to the PDCA, so that's great.
And it's nice, and then we can put, that money towards advocating for the sport of diving and helping diving and everything. So it's a nice partnership that I'm hoping we're going to continue working together on.
Yes, no, I'm happy to. Happy to. I have a heart for dive coaches. I pinched hit for a little bit when my daughter's high school needed a coach, and actually took USA diving certification class back in when my oldest was 15 and got a new respect for what everybody does as a coach. And I love working with kids. So it may be something I do as a retirement career. Who knows? So I feel for all the coaches and the challenges that you guys are going through.
Amazing. Well, I definitely appreciate your time, but do you have any other like things you want to tell everyone before we end our call today?
The only thing I would say is just feel free to reach out and ask questions. I know it's intimidating sometimes to work with elected officials, and sometimes there might be a resource that needs to be made, but it maybe you don't have the time or the skill set to do it. And we have a lot of parents in the DC metro area who work in and around Capitol Hill that are very excited about helping and happy to jump in. So I'm one person, but I have an army behind me that has the same skill set of working with Washington DC and with policymakers, and they definitely have been really great at helping me out with drafting some of the information that we've been working on.
We just have to rally our army of diving coaches, diving parents, athletes, and we'll be able to help you so you won't be an army of one.
Oh yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the help, and definitely coaches feel free to speak up. I know it's hard right now, but just you can caveat it all the time as this is just my personal perspective, and the members of Congress know that they need to respect that privacy between you and them, and not let it circle back to the university. So feel
Absolutely.
confident in that.
Right. Because so many coaches are worried about their jobs.
Mhm.
And they don't want to say anything because they don't want to lose their job. And so I think it's
Right.
important to say that, they
Yep.
can do it anonymously if they talk to the Congress and just say, I don't want my name out there. I think that's really
Yeah.
important because people don't want to say things because they don't want their name associated with it. So you can do it anonymously or just
Yep.
say, this isn't anonymous, but please don't share my name with everyone. I think that's really important that people know that.
Right. And the athletes, same thing. If their athletes are going through some struggles and want to talk to somebody about it, they have the right to do that too. So everybody, the members of Congress have a process where they get information from their constituents, where they know they need to be keep things as private as they can while still working on the issue. So
Amazing. Well, let's
thank you.
let's keep working on it and keep making it better and better. But
Yeah,
again, I mean, I can't say it enough. We appreciate everything that you're doing, and I personally appreciate everything you're doing and the time that you're putting into this and taking time to talk with me today. So thank you
sure.
so much for this, and hopefully this helps educate people a little bit more because I think, when you talk about talking to Congress, they're like, well, what's the point of that? And so I think now hopefully people have a much better understanding of it.
Yeah, they need to hear from us or they won't take action. So let's get out there.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Thank you.